The events of the film unfold somewhere in the future, in which, before the onset of the apocalypse, people lived in a clearly more advanced world than you and I. Nevertheless, this did not save them from an ecological catastrophe, but rather the opposite. After all, some genetic technologies were to blame for everything, with the help of which various microorganisms were grown in lab. As a result, these microorganisms, due to leakage, spread throughout the earth. Well, along the way, all edible plants and animals were killed. As a result, richer people have closed in their elite cities, which are called citadels here, in which strict population control and the latest technology help to the rest drag out a miserable existence on barren lands. They are forced to exchange seeds from the city oligarchs' plants genetically programmed so that the fruits grown from them do not give offspring. In the opening scene, the main character Vesper together with a flying drone controlled by her father, prowling through the mud in search of edible roots. After digging up some provisions, the girl returns home, carefully avoiding the tentacles of carnivorous plants sticking out of the ground. Inside she prepares a nutrient mixture, which she pours into a bag which, in turn, hangs next to the bed of a seriously ill father to feed him through a tube. After feeding the patient, Vesper goes to the laboratory. Her father's telepathically controlled drone flies with her. Inside, the girl talks with the dead man dried up by time and also collects the necessary equipment for her own scientific experiments. She is interrupted by a suspicious noise from outside, a source which is one of the pilgrim's sick people, collecting all sorts of rubbish and taking it somewhere away. Returning home, Vesper notices that someone interrupted the guard of predatory tentacles. With a knife in her hand, she sneaks into the house, but no one is there. However, some things are damaged, including the power generator that supports the father's life support system. The girl goes for help to the nearest settlement, where she witnesses a terrible scene. Locals, with traces of genetic degeneration on their faces, surrounded a wounded Jaga, a creature artificially grown in a test tube for work. The village elder Jonas appears. He forces his son, who is responsible for the incident, to finish off the wounded Jag in order to save him from suffering. Although not immediately, but the boy shreds the worker with a knife. Ordered to remove the body, Jonas talks with Vesper, who is his niece. The girl asks her uncle for the parts necessary for repair, but he refuses to help for free. Times are tough these days. Then Vesper donates her blood in exchange. Jonas uses it when trading with the Citadel. When she asks to pay her off, her uncle tells her to come back in a couple of days. First you need to sell, but the father will not last that long, so the girl wants to take the liquid. But nothing works out for her. Jonas throws her out into the street, where his children laugh at her. Vesper later returns to the village to sneak inside. As she tries to sneak into the house unnoticed, she is stumbled upon by one of Jonas's children, a boy taking blood from his finger. But he says nothing, allowing Vesper to carry out his plan. But in addition to parts for the generator, she also steals seeds, from which her uncle unsuccessfully tried. Returning back, Vesper sees a falling glider in the sky, but does not pay attention to it. At home, she shows her father the stolen seeds, which she wants to try to genetically unlock so that they give birth to natural. The next day, wandering through the forest, the girl finds a wounded woman who, judging by her clothes, has arrived from the Citadel. She was already surrounded by blood-sucking plants. Noticing that she is still breathing, Vesper disconnects the blood-sucking flagella and drags the body home, where he treats wounds and pulls out parasites. Her father is unhappy that she brought an outsider, but Vesper believes that she did the right thing. The saved one can be her ticket to a better life within the walls of the Citadel. Meanwhile, a woman named Camellia comes into himself and hides a knife under his pillow. She asks Vesper where her companion is. Vesper, he must be found. Contrary to his father's words, promises to find the second passenger, but in the morning, because it is not good to walk through the forest at night. In the evening, the girl tries to feed the guest, but she is not used to eating soup with larvae and caterpillars, even if they carefully chose the most juicy ones. Camellia says that her father is a big man in the Citadel and will help them. And Vesper reveals that her father was a Citadel. In the morning, Vesper and a drone set out to search for a crashed glider. Following the tracks from the fragments, she finds the device in the lowland. Vesper doesn't have time to open the door when Jonas appears with his men. Seeing inside the wounded man from the Citadel, Jonas, instead of helping, strangles him, despite the tears and pleas of his niece. Realizing that there is a second passenger somewhere, the uncle asks the girl if she has met anyone, but she is lying so as not to betray. At night, Vesper leads Camellia to her garden, where her plants grow. She wants to demonstrate her usefulness as a geneticist so that Camellia put in a good word for her in the Citadel. In the house, the girl talks about her mother. One day the mother fell ill and left with the pilgrims. Then they look at a book about animals. Camellia, who grew up in more favorable conditions, tells the girl. Vesper agrees with his father that it is necessary to call people from the Citadel for Camellia. The girl tries to get into her uncle's house the next day. He has the only transmitter for communication in the whole district. The drone flew to reconnaissance but fell into the hands of Jonas. Uncle is taking apart. Jonas wonders why she came and does not know who stole his seeds. He even had to punish his son, who was on duty that day. Frightened by his ominous tone, Vesper grabs the drone at the first opportunity and flees. Jonas follows and whistles the command to his son. In the forest, Vesper launches the drone into flight, but after being repaired, it can barely keep its balance. He falls down. The girl goes down after him and stumbles upon the body of a dead boy, the same one that did not raise the alarm earlier. Soon the boys sent for her appear. They pursue Vesper and eventually catch her. While two hold at the third, at home, Vesper, frustrated, tries to fix the drone. Camellia consoles her, and as a result, the girl confesses to her that her father, the second passenger of the glider, is dead. She takes the guest to the forest, where his body lies in a swamp. Vesper notices a scar on Camellia's back and realizes that she is an artificially created jug, unique in its kind, endowed unlike the others with a full-fledged conscience. She was on the run with her creator for violating the sentient jug law. Vesper understands that Camellia will not take her to the Citadel since she herself cannot return there. This infuriates her. She throws mud at the woman. Returning to his father, Vesper tells about what happened. He notices that the girl still needs to run. Jonas has marked her as prey and will punish her for stealing. While they are talking, Camellia tries to commit suicide in another room with a hidden knife, but misses. Vesper comes running to a cry of pain and prevents him from finishing what he started. Having reconciled, the girl asks Camellia for Vesper finds a blocked code in DNA, just like the seeds of plants that are deprived of the ability to reproduce. At the same time, Camellia reveals that her creator was to her not as a daughter, but as a wife. Remembering him, the guest begins to play the local stringed instrument. DNA suddenly reacts to certain notes, and with their help, Vesper manages to unlock the code. By adding Camellia genetic material to the grains, Vesper manages to remove the block on reproduction from them as well. Such a discovery will fundamentally change the entire system of relations in society. Upon learning of this, the father tells Vesper to go with Camellia to another citadel and exchange the unlocked seeds for a safe haven. To finish the experiments, the girl goes to the laboratory. At this time, Jonas comes to the house and finds Camellia there. He offers to go with him, threatening to kill his sick brother if he refuses. But noticing that she is not a man but a jug, Jonas tries to rape her first and then kill her. In this, he is hindered by the returned Vesper and the drone. A fight breaks out. The fight ends when his hand is nailed to the table with a knife. The niece offers her uncle a deal. He leaves them alone in exchange for unlocked seeds. Then he will have his own harvest and will not have to collect blood from children. However, to trade returning to the village, the uncle contacts the Citadel via the transmitter and hands over the escaped jug. In the evening, while Vesper is experimenting, an attack begins on the house. First, a certain liquid penetrates through the gap under the door, resembling a rapidly growing. People climb from her to the table, but she keeps coming and coming. At the last moment, the mold suddenly freezes and begins to evaporate with a poisonous but quickly dissipating smoke. Realizing that soldiers will come next, the father tells his daughter and Camellia's run into the garden. He himself will try to convince former colleague. The soldiers, meanwhile, visit Jonas's house. He goes out to meet them and, without talking, gets a bullet in the head. The drone meets the soldiers near the generator, which explodes after the shot, burying in the fire not only Vesper's father, but also the soldiers who came after him. The girl, seeing flashes of flame, rushes back in tears, but Camellia holds her back and brings her to her senses. They continue on their way to the garden, but the trail is already followed by the strongholds of the Citadel. Vesper uses his knowledge of the area and the characteristics of the plants to trap one of them between the red bushes. If disturbed, a swarm of aggressive fireflies will pierce the troublemaker. This happens with the first soldier, but the second one bypasses the bushes. The girls hide behind bushes until another plant gives them away with its squeak. The soldier returns and a fight breaks out between them. Vesper smears the glass of his helmet with mud, causing him to drop his weapon. Picking it up, the girl does not know how to shoot but thinks throw it in the bush. An alarmed swarm of fireflies rises from the thickets and attacks the warrior frozen. Camellia, realizing that the soldiers will not stop chasing her, is about to return and surrender. Vesper, in tears, begs her to stay and not leave her, but the jug, using a soporific kiss, puts the girl to sleep. Sprinkling the body with dry leaves, Camellia goes to the garden, where the soldiers find her. Waking up in the morning in the forest on the ground, Vesper returns to the ashes where the house was. She plants a few seeds in the blackened earth. During this occupation, she is caught by the 4 children of Jonas, who miraculously survived the night sweep. When Vesper leaves in search of a new stronghold, they go after her. Children travel across the country, joining a string of pilgrims who drag the collected garbage in a direction known to them. A few days later, travelers come to a huge man-made tower made of rubbish, built by pilgrims who pitched a tent city at its base. Approaching the tower, Vesper realizes that her journey is almost over. Leaving her companions below, the girl climbs up. Almost breaking off in the process, she climbs to the very top, to the observation deck, towering over the surrounding forests. The girl looks around and notices nearby the giant domes of another citadel. However, instead of dismounting and heading there, Vesper takes out the unlocked seeds and throws them into the wind to spread them as wide as possible and plant nearby lands. And maybe vegetables and fruits will eventually spread again throughout the earth.